Hello and welcome to the Subvert Podcast, your entry into the land of no easy answers, as we journey through the vagaries of the mind, attempting to unravel the mysteries of why our brains brain. Hey everybody.
Hi.
Welcome back to the Subvert Podcast. I'm Aaron Stewart. This is Kristen Rumor, as always. We are excited and overjoyed to actually record this episode for you.
We just recorded one and realized,
we
didn't record it.
It was
we forgot
an hour
to
and a
hit record.
half that we had this great conversation. I mean, it was amazing. We laughed, we cried, and none of it was recorded.
Oh, there were some profound realizations.
We came to like the definitive conclusion of many of our ongoing discussions that we've been having.
World peace was achieved.
We found the land of easy answers and reveled in it, and you don't get to see
But
any
sadly,
of it.
nobody will ever be able to see that. Naturally, we will be able to 100% recreate that episode right now.
As we're doing right now for you, yes, exactly. So, cue the laughter.
En français.
Now a couple of tears. And now we get into reading your minds with computers.
Indeed. Before we get into it, make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Give us a like,
Thank
turn
goodness
on the
you're
notification
here. That
bell.
would just never get done.
We would never have any subscribers.
Because I would not be begging them to, come on, please, please.
Is it begging? Please, please.
Yeah, you know.
Please subscribe.
Whatever works for you.
My
if you
children
need us to beg, I'll
I
beg.
don't have children. But
I'm not too proud to beg for subscribers, please.
But yes, we are talking about reading thoughts today and mind control and all of these very sci-fi.
Well, okay, and see, that's what I because I didn't need to beg, because we can just program your phone to just mind control you and make you subscribe. Okay, just let me get on.
Don't say that.
Oh, sorry. Right. Okay.
The whole point of the mind control is they don't realize it's happening.
Yeah, but I mean, as soon as I flip that switch, they'll forget all about it anyway.
That's how it works.
It's okay. I mean, you just got to jam it into the head. That's once it's in the head.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Okay. Anyway, mind control and thought reading. Thought reading is actually what we're talking about, how the technology is actually being developed and it's getting better and better all the time. So it's now at the point where MRI scans can create an algorithm that can actually predict one's thoughts. And I think this is based off of a rather small study so far and still obviously in the research phase, but having very promising results.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of technology being developed, as you'd mentioned in the previous unaired episode.
Hey.
Military having developed a lot of, I don't know if it's mind control techniques or...
Well, using the mind to control things, right? Mm-hmm. So they've hooked up, I believe, paraplegics to various machines, and they've allowed them to actually control...
Okay.
Yeah, robotics to some extent. Yeah.
So controlling things with your thoughts.
Yeah. Would be one part of it. There are, as far as transmitting commands on the battlefield, they can apparently mostly pick out those kind of
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, let's get into it and be. There's obviously some benefits that if you're paraplegic, for example, and being able to actually participate and to move things, and that's obviously a huge benefit. But let's get into kind of like the ethics and the morality behind, and we want you guys for sure comment on this. Would you want someone being able to read your thoughts? Right? What is the benefit to the mind reading part of it? Right? The controlling things with your mind, I could maybe get on board with, but having technology that can actually read we're not far off now anyways. Yeah. I mean, God.
Well, I was just thinking, imagine a social media that's literally just tied to your brain, that just you are just constantly transmitting you.
Yeah. Okay.
Right? Just through your brain and the ability to go, I'm going to post that, click. Right? Inside your brain, I'm just, oh my goodness.
Well, I was thinking more from the being able to read your brain side, just the flip of it, right? Because that's what this particular study was on, reading your thought patterns. So if the technology exists, and again, it's close enough now with all of your data capture, being able to create an algorithm
Yeah.
that, tries to mimic how you think, if now it actually knows
Well, and this is where, I mean,
what you think,
arguably
what
they
is the
kind of have
benefit to that?
they've gathered enough data to be able to predict what you are going to think kind of anyway, I think, basically, right? I mean,
Yeah.
without necessarily having to have the, jam a needle in your head to take that reading kind
Well,
of
so
thing,
why is this type of research being funded then? That's kind of
I
my
think,
question. Why does it need to
yeah,
go further? And
I'm
what,
sure it's the military, right? That, most of it, when you get down to, would probably just be the military funded it because they want to be able to talk to each other without the enemy being able to hear commands, right? I mean,
okay, yeah,
a radio, you can pick up the signal,
yeah,
right? But if you're transmitting thoughts to each other, right?
yeah.
Do you have a person on the other end that can receive those too? Like, what's the next era
I
of
was like,
that,
how do
right?
you
Like,
tune your
what's
brain?
the espionage of that, right? Like, do you just actually climb into, right? Like, anyway, but yeah, so they've hooked up soldiers to MRI or whatever brain scanners, and apparently commands are specifically really good for being able to pick out, specific language in the brain, because it's a specific thing every time. If you're telling somebody to walk 3 feet and turn left, it's the same thing kind of inside the brain versus a lot of other things which can be emotionally charged or tied to other things and activate other parts of the brain. So for that, they've apparently made real progress in being able to have a helmet that can transmit thoughts to each other. But
Yeah,
crazy. But I mean, as far as the other aspects of that, I mean, think of, say, being out in space, right, and to be able to control a robot or something that's doing a task that is too dangerous for a person to be able to do physically, right? But to be able to control it, they have robot surgeons now that you can essentially, right, like where it's a robotic hand that's going inside you, but the surgeon is doing this with it. If they could have it as a brain interface, would that give them better fine control, right? Like, or would that just make things messier, right? Like, oh, sorry, oh, I didn't mean to.
It was the robot.
Right? Yeah. Oh, I told you to turn the notifications off on your phone.
Insurance doesn't cover robot mishaps.
That would definitely be the first form they would get you to sign.
Yeah. So again, like there's definitely a lot of perks to it. I just can't help but think of, kind of the Orwellian aspect to it of, do we want something that can actually read our thoughts? Because that's where it gets a little bit scary to me. If that technology does exist, right? And right now it exists only through our overt behaviors, i.e., surfing the internet. That's how that exists. But if it exists in a format of, let's say a drone can fly past you and actually scan your head for what you're thinking, right? Like, I'd like to think none of these tools would be used nefariously,
I was going to ask,
but
like,
we're going to have to.
what are you thinking that we need to be protected from?
Oh God, that's always the thing now. Like, if you got nothing to hide,
yeah,
then
exactly.
It's like,
then why wouldn't you want your brain scanned?
Yeah, we're just here to help you.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
just
for
to
your
make sure
protection.
that you're not having deviant thoughts. I mean, that's right. Well, who decides what's deviant? Well,
well, exactly.
Don't ask questions.
It doesn't matter that it changes on like a monthly basis. And be like, oh God, but this was non-deviant last month. Well,
it's for your
the science
own
has
good.
changed. What? Okay.
Yeah, and like,
so that's where it
where
gets
does
a
it
bit.
go?
That's where ethically, was anybody asked about this? And this is kind of where I like to get into it, is all of the research that's funded, and like these are big, potentially life-changing things for everybody, right? And were you asked if you wanted to fund this type of research? Are you interested? And genuinely comment, because I really do want to know.
Well, I'm interested.
Right? Would you want this to be developed? If so, why? But do you think that these are types of things that should maybe be voted on if they have the potential for widespread impact to every single human being on this planet? Should we not maybe have a say in it? Is that asking a bit much?
I would assume that we're going to have some, right? Like, they're not just going to...
Would you?
They're not just going to start slapping chips in people's brains when they're born, hopefully.
Yeah, I can't
I'm
even
not putting
say
ideas out there or
with
anything.
certainty that that wouldn't happen
No,
because
that
nothing
was, yeah.
surprises me
I'm sure
anymore.
that's the premise of a sci-fi film somewhere already.
But
So
if you look at kind of what is happening and with the development of technology, right? And there's a lot of things that do infringe on our privacy right now that are just now commonplace, standard. And again, we didn't really get a say on if they're implemented or not.
well, I believe it's called I think it's the MetaHuman Initiative, where there are people who are essentially trying to find the ways of like implanting the chips in their skin, right?
Yeah.
They've basically put magnets in their fingers and such so that you can actually, right? Like there's a
Yeah.
bunch of different.
There is technology for that already. I think it's Sweden right now that's kind of leading the way in that, where they do have chip implants that it's carrying like their
RFIDs, yeah.
ID and their banking information and things like that. So it's definitely developing there.
Yeah.
Um,
But like the idea of like even a Google Glass or something where it's augmented reality vision, right? Where they're trying to find ways of just even making it so that you can have that interface over your normal vision,
yeah,
right? Which the
I
logical
hate seeing the
progression.
world as it is.
Yeah, well, that's like the progression of that would be implanted in your eyes, right? Or
Yeah.
implanted in your brain,
Yeah.
where it's transmitting this to your optical nerve directly, right? Where the better we get at kind of these neuronal interfaces, the more interesting it's going to be, right? And yeah,
Well, it's just you look at how technology has infiltrated all of our lives now, right? To the point where it's almost impossible to live without a smartphone, for sure without the internet.
mm,
If you want to live within, cities and within culture, obviously, if you off grid, then that's different. But if you want to participate kind of in
yeah.
society,
Try telling
it is,
somebody you don't have an email address.
it's impossible now, right?
Right? Like, good luck, have fun with that. Because
Again,
like,
like,
what? Who is this person without an email? What, seriously?
like you could get by, I guess, without a smartphone, but you have to have access to the internet. That's where everything's happening, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that progressed again without, we didn't really get a say in that. And I know there's a lot of people that are still very angry about it, that prefer to do things, face to face, in person, or more tangible, pen to paper type people, right? And that's almost gone. So what's
There's an argument to be
say?
made that something's lost in all of this for sure.
But I feel like everything that when it starts out always starts off with the promise of, oh no, it'll never get to this point. We'll always have other options available for you. And there's
And I've
like
never once
thousands.
believed any of them when they
But
said
every
it.
time it happens, like we can throw 1,000 examples out there, right?
And that's the thing, right? Like and that's like I said, every single one I'm just always just like, we'll see.
Exactly. And every time you're like, oh, there it is.
There it is.
So of course this I don't think will be any different. We're developing this technology, for this purpose only, and it would never be used in any other way.
You definitely don't have to sign your soul over just to be able to get access to this thing.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't want anyone to be able to access. You don't want inside this head.
Well, and I've been running on a theory for a long time that the only way we would ever actually achieve any kind of equality would be for everybody to be able to see each other's thoughts, right? To be able to actually have access unfettered without any reservation to each other, and just like the idea that we consider this a bad thing. I mean, would it be?
The argument is the technology exists, but we wouldn't know how to use the technology.
But this is the thing. Like, it's more like running on this thought experiment of if we lived in a world where you could.
If it was just plain telepathy.
But this is like, what would really be the downside of that? If you could actually have unfettered truth without any, right? Like, I can see when you're lying to me. Like, there wouldn't be any, right? Like, it doesn't necessarily make for a great story, right? Like, you're not going to see a movie with just like, oh, no, you can just see, and everybody was just kind of cool with it.
But I agree, right? if that actually existed. But we're talking about
terrorism.
It's a machine
you couldn't
that's
have
doing
because
it.
you couldn't shield these things from you. You'd be able to see. No, wait, that guy's obviously carrying something. We could, right? Like, like to just have that openness, to just have that full-on, complete. I can see you. I see you. Right? Like, what would be the negativity of that? I mean, I'm sure there's.
Well, I mean, for them, there's probably a lot of things you'd be like, ugh.
Yeah, but I mean, is that something that we have manufactured because we don't have?
Yeah, true.
That if we were given,
thoughts.
right? Like, is it
Sure,
only because we consider this the normal that we wouldn't You know, that would be considered, oh, we can't have that, right? As opposed to if we were in a, you know, on a world where we just had that access to everybody and it was the normal, you know, would that not just be something that we just accepted, you know, and have that just kind of access to? You know?
Yeah, I have a hard time thinking that it would not be used nefariously, because it would be a beautiful thing to be able to read each other's thoughts and to have just that open communication. But that's not what's being developed. What's being developed is AI technology that can scan your thoughts. Not like a person to person scanning, an intermediary. So then someone has to control that technology. And that's where it becomes, I mean, if we were all maybe given little
Well, and
wands
this
that
is
can be
where
like,
you would think that would be kind of the end goal. Like, I don't want to, like, like transmitting thoughts to a computer, but you still want to be able to read those thoughts, right?
Yeah.
Like one way or another, you want to have access to what's going on in there. That's kind of the whole point of the thing, right?
Yeah.
So you would think that the end goal would be to remove whatever AI or whatever is reading it and just transmit directly.
Well, so it should be then, again, open to everyone. So if that's the end game, then yeah, everyone should have access to read the thoughts, and not only military or government or whoever's developing it. It's like, okay, we have this technology, so we can read your thoughts. Again, if you have nothing to be, you know, nothing to hide, you know, make it available to everyone then.
Have like virtual reality, you know, places where you can go and just put a helmet on and just sit and just actually like, okay, let's do this, right? Like, and just have it half an hour of just unfettered access to each other's brains, right? Like, hey, right? Like, but this is the thing, right? Like we recoil, but why? Right? Like, what exactly is going on inside my head that wouldn't be kind of the right? Like, we all have crazy, stupid, deviant thoughts inside our heads at any point in time. So why would your crazy deviant thoughts be any more, right? I mean, sure, if you're thinking about murdering people, everybody all the time, right? But that's again something that you'd think we'd want to be able to have out in the open so we could deal with, as opposed to you murdering people.
But then it's also like, where do you kind of draw the line of what's an acceptable thought and what's not? So going back to, if, you know, there's something else that's scanning it, because again, like, I've had weird thoughts. Who hasn't had fantasies of, you know, not that. I was like, oh God, I'm going to get arrested for this episode, aren't I? But like, who hasn't had crazy thoughts that would be deemed as, you know, insane or dangerous or whatever? We've all definitely had these things, right? But they're just thoughts. A thought is meaningless until you attribute meaning to it. And that's where I see the danger and actually the futility in reading thoughts, because of that very reason, right? A thought is just a thought until you attribute the meaning to it and then a behavior to follow through on it. So what on earth is the point of reading just meaningless garbage, because that's all thoughts are?
Yeah, that would be,
what is
right?
The point?
Like, it'd be like a quantum foam of just stuff popping up all the time of just, oh, I gotta get to that, gotta remember this, gotta get that, right? Like, it just, just the random bullshit. This would be the thing, right? Like, you would have to have some way of filtering out just the stuff that just pops up through a head all day, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, absolutely.
But yeah,
I could see it being very messy. Absolutely.
Like you can't judge anybody, or especially punish anybody, on just a thought. It's got to be the behavior that then manifests from the thought, because that means you've now taken the thought seriously and attributed. Right? So again, like, what on earth is the point? Because we will all be in prison if it's just...
But that would be the point, would be normalizing those thoughts, right? Like, recognizing that we all, and again, it's that follow through that we could hopefully help each other with, right? Where yeah, you have that thought, but we're going to talk about so that we don't have that follow through, right? And again, that kind of openness, just that full on, no judgment, no, right? Like, we're going to just talk about this shit so that we can have, you know, a conversation about whether that actually helps us or not. You know? Yeah.
I mean, that would obviously be a great end game. I'm skeptical of that being the outcome of this.
Well, we're going to find out, because they're going to start implementing those.
I mean, I'm sure
implanting the shit pretty quickly.
I'm sure that will be what we're told. This is obviously for your own good and for the betterment of everybody, because we want to understand each other better.
But see, the thing is, they won't.
You just won't have access. There will be no transparency. Eventually, there will be some transparency.
But this is the thing: is that they won't even have to. All they're going to have to do is put it in a shiny little package and give it give you something that, right? Like, and now everybody's got one, and don't you want to be able to, transmit your thoughts right to the internet? I mean,
my money.
doesn't
Take
everybody
my
want,
money.
you know? And that's going to be how they'll get you, right? It's going to be one of those where it's not going to be that much different than what we're already kind of doing. It's just going to be that, next step in the evolution of. And don't you want to be part of that next step? I would suggest waiting for about the third or fourth generation of it. But
probably, don't be part of the
yeah, don't be the first generation.
beta testing
never,
now.
Yeah.
Probably not a good idea. Sign me up to be the first one with an experimental chip in my brain that might explode.
Yeah, most of the monkeys have died. But we'll try it on you. You'll be fine. Yeah, and that's the thing.
But I mean, what if you don't have a choice to it, and that's where it gets kind of scary.
Again, I don't think it's going to be anything like that. It's going to be one of those things where you will gladly choose this.
See, but I'm looking at it from you look at all the stuff that you've already kind of almost, I won't say involuntarily, but just fell into because of the evolution of technology. And, there's more overt examples that I'm not allowed to talk about, but, for...
shut us down.
But, like you agree to terms and conditions of things without reading them because they're like, and everything is just, so I have no reason to believe this would be anything different, right? I don't think it would be, you'd just be, okay, this is what's happening. Oh, you need to keep up. You need this. You need the latest update on your phone to be able to keep participating. So you get the latest update, right? No one's really thinking too much into it, and this will be it's just the latest update. It's just the next evolution. You need the newest thing. You need the newest model. You need this. You need this. And we willingly go along with it now without really asking why and questioning it. So that's my thought on it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it'll be hey, participants here. I think it'll just be okay, well, this is the newest iPhone is now in your hand. And people will be lining up around the street because that's the newest iPhone, and it will do, I don't know, something better than the last iPhone did.
Don't you want your phone surgically implanted in your...
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely... Yeah, right? I want my doctor implanting my phone in my
Some people
skull.
might, right? Because everything's fed to us as convenience. Right? So next level, things will stop working as outdated phones do. Anyone that's had an Apple product can attest to that. And you're like, fucking great, now I need a new one. Stops working. And we've built this world that's increasingly reliant upon it, so you do need it. You can't just toss it in the trash, unfortunately. Or maybe you can, and then I applaud you. Right? So it'll just be...
it's just recycling it. But.
Once all of this becomes obsolete, and we're so dependent on it, and all of a sudden, okay, you can't get a tangible phone anymore. Now you got to get your phone implanted in your hand or your brain.
What, you're only on 3G?
And
I've
it's
got
just
brain fi.
It happens so gradually that we all just don't realize where it's going until it's too late. And it's not so much voluntary. And that's kind of my point is, the people that are in charge like to, we're all hitting that agree button, so therefore it's voluntary. And again, extrapolate this to whatever you want, people. But, it's not. At the same time, you need this to be able to survive. So you're just like, okay, sure, whatever. Going through it. And yeah, sure, of course. You don't need it. You're not going to die. But you won't be able to participate in society. Not a voluntary choice, in my opinion.
No.
Right? So if this is an evolution of that, yeah, I don't see it being I'm signing up to get my brain chip. It'll just be I want my old shitty phone, and then it'd be like, but your shitty phone doesn't work anymore. Okay, well, I just won't have a phone.
Doesn't connect to the network anymore.
And you'll hold out for a while until it's like, okay, well, I'm gonna need I need all of this, the access to stuff.
Mm-hmm. The social impetus definitely pushes towards. Yeah, and how do you deny it when everybody on your block has, right?
Well, and that's it. And it is already, right? I get laughed at because I do have a really, really shitty phone, as you've all just seen, right? And everyone's like, why do you have this crap? And I'm like, I think it does what I need it to do. But it's now hitting the point, as Apple does, where it's like, oh, this is no longer available for your... And it's starting to shut down. And I'm like... And so I'm in this struggle right now of like, I don't want anything else because what do I need it for, right? But now I'm forced into... and I'm going to end up having to cave eventually. And it doesn't sit well with me, and I wish I was a stronger person, but I'm not. I'm weak. I'm sure you guys can all relate to this.
I like flashy things. The
Yeah.
buttons and the light up.
I like when it makes noises. It makes me feel special.
Pretty much, right? I mean, it's sadly, that's right. I call it my crow mentality. Ooh, shiny.
Yeah.
Ooh, shiny. Ooh. Yeah, unfortunately, that's just what my brain is drawn to, and just that new shiny thing. Unfortunately, brain just goes, I want that. Give me that. Give me that.
I think we all are for the most part.
And they trick us and they hijack our right, and so yeah.
Well, it's the needs versus wants.
And this is where I keep going back to, I don't think it's going to be something they're going to really have to coerce us to sign up for. Like, I assume that I've already given my soul away in so many increments over the different things that I've signed, right? They're all asking, at the bottom of it just says, oh, and your soul, right? Like,
probably, yeah. We're
and
probably
I just assume
all
every one of
by
these things I've signed
has
has that clause at the bottom. So 80 whatever corporations already own my soul. So what does it matter, right? I mean,
very grim thought. It's probably not far off.
Well, if you subscribe to the notion of your soul having a value, I guess it's.
If you're going to subscribe to anything,
yeah.
However.
Yeah, absolutely.
Shameless.
Give us your soul.
Give us your soul.
We'll take care of it. It'll be great. We'll add it. It'll have a nice little farm where all the other souls hang out. It's a nice little place where they just retire and all the souls have eternity to just play around. It's great.
Well, that's nice.
Yeah.
So pretty. Subscribe now.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think like anything, this is a topic we could probably go on all day about, and definitely no easy answer to it. But please comment.
Ramble on about a topic.
Yeah, no, never. God.
No.
But chime in and please comment and let us know, like, what do you think about this? Are you excited for technology that could potentially bring us closer together by, having mind reading?
Mm-hmm.
Are you worried about it? How could this be used positively?
Which generation will you sign up for? First, second, third? How long will you wait before you'll, right? Like, how long will it take them to work the kinks out of this process, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you're still on first generation?
What would the upgrades mean? Do you just need to keep getting more chips? Like, at what point will we just be all robots?
Are we just going to have a slot on the back of our... They just
got a card slot?
Yeah, exactly, right? Like, let me plug in. That would probably be the easiest interface. Instead of trying to transmit wirelessly, we'll just have plugs that just...
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Transmit your thoughts to us on the social medias. Use your brain to hit the like button.
But if that doesn't work, just
manifest the subscribe through your... I'm trying to find... I'm really reaching here.
Yeah, exactly. Just hit subscribe.
Just hit subscribe.
And like and follow.
Use your brain to control your finger.
Yeah. Okay.
That's what we've got now.
Well, thank you very much for joining.
As always, have the best one.
Bye.